Hey, we're back. Welcome to the OnAire Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Taylor.
Hey, it is the podcast where we talk about all things dirty and dusty in your life. Well, maybe your industrial life.
I mean, and we're trying to keep it less dirty and less dusty.
That's right. That's what we do. All right. So a great episode today. We've got our guest, Alec Branchley, who's our licensed electrician here at OnAire. So we'll be talking about the shocking truths behind OnAire.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's interesting for us too, because we're mechanical guys. And my whole goal through college very quickly was like, I don't want to know anything about electricity.
Right.
It's scary. I can't
class.
see it. And if I do something wrong, I get electrocuted.
Laplace transform just popped into my head. I don't know why, but I'm trying to forget about it. I don't want to know about it. Hey, before we get into that, unfortunately, we got some current event news on the dust space. So we did have another combustible dust explosion in Maine this time, a wood plant.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I feel bad this year because I feel like we've done this for half the episodes we've recorded this year where there's been something going on. We've had the one in Georgia, we've had one in North Carolina, and now we've got one in Maine. And, you know, this one hurts a little bit because the people that were, I mean, there were several people impacted. But in this instance, there were two first responders who unfortunately lost their lives trying to solve the situation with the fire that was going on. We had a firefighter whose name was Andrew Cross. He was a 27-year-old who was killed trying to help these people. And then here recently in the last week, it was later announced that an assistant fire chief for one of the areas, Mr. Wayne Woodbury, passed away from injuries in fighting the fire.
Yeah, my dad helped establish a volunteer fire department. Was a volunteer fireman for many years. So I know these guys didn't wake up that morning with this on their mind, but they were willing to just run into the middle of it without regard and trying to do the right thing and create a safer world and take care of facility and other lives that were at risk. And so we are grateful for folks like that, our first responders, and their service, and their hearts go out to the folks in Maine. Another dozen or so people injured, family members of the facility there, and just a really tragic, sad day. Yeah,
it's hard. And a lot of times we talk about just secondary events from a dust perspective. And this is an instance where you have a secondary event outside of the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where it is so important why we're talking about dust control and why we're in the industry of trying to keep things safe, because it's not just the people that are working with the dust.
Right.
It's not just the building owner, the CEO of that company. This goes out to the community.
Mm-hmm.
In this instance, we see firefighters coming from all over the state to come help the situation. And they were the ones that lost their lives. And so that is where, it's easy to forget about the dust or easy to ignore, but safety and this industrial hygiene space is so important, just because something like this can impact 3, 4, 5, iterations down the road of people that are being impacted.
Yeah, I think they had 300 firefighters on set and on scene there, and about almost 50 different fire departments were called into play. And so, like you said, big impact to the community there, right. And a facility that had been around over 100 years, which is remarkable, and probably had never experienced anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to a person at a wood show once who said, my facility is more likely to get struck by lightning than have a combustible dust event.
Yeah.
And they may be accurate statistically speaking. However, a lightning strike probably is not going to have the same reaching impact that a combustible dust event will.
Yeah, I mean, this facility has been up and running since the 1880s. It's insane to think about, one, just kind of the long-lasting legacy that they've been able to produce. That's something that, would be great to be said about OnAire. We've been in operation for almost 150 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is that. It's like when you start to play the statistics game, like something is going to happen. And, whether it's lightning or it's a dust event, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you have these people that are being impacted. And I mean, like, I don't know if we can put the video up or whatever when we're talking about it, but I mean, it made this silo look like a rocket ship.
Yeah, it started in the silo. Is what we know so far. It started in the silo with some type of spark or thermal event that ignited some of the dust. It's my understanding that they had some fire detection sensors in the top of the silo, but this appears to have started in the bottom of the silo. And then, like you said, it just poof up from there. And then of course, it spread rapidly throughout the building and other areas there on campus.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, like, the closest thing I can think about is kind of the auger on a smoker, like how it's pushing those wood pellets through or anything. And that's kind of how it's been explained to me and pictured about how they transfer stuff from point A to point B. And so obviously, we don't have all the details, but you imagine that something is getting in that funnel and doesn't have an escape. Yeah. And so that sent it upward. But it is always, it's heartbreaking when something like that happens. But then just the impact out of it, I mean, you have all of Maine doing the investigation, but then like ATF is having to get involved because it's like an explosive event. And so just having to check all their bases as they do this. But, I mean, that's why we do this, though.
Yeah.
Like, because we can put an end to it.
You got to stay vigilant. Just whatever type of facility you're working in out there today, you know that there are risks, and don't assume that it won't happen to you, and it can't happen to you, because it can. And unfortunately, we're seeing it regularly in the news.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. So be on the lookout for all of those dust-related hazards, dust-related issues. Do a DHA, conduct a DHA. If you don't have a resource for that, reach out to us. We'd be glad to put you in contact with an expert that can. It's not something we do, but we would be glad to be a part of that and put you in contact with a resource.
Yeah, and that's all we want to do. Like, we have the equipment or whatever, and it's not going to always help in each of these situations. We're not going to say that we would have prevented X, Y, or Z, but I think the point that's super important here is that this is not a single industry issue. Like, just looking in 2026, one of the events was in metals, one of the events was in grain, one of the events is in wood. And so, like, you cannot just say, oh, I'm in X industry, dust isn't a problem. And so it's just, we've got to do your legwork. Safety is not cheap. It's not time efficient. It's not any of these things. But, we don't, you or your family or your loved ones or your community or the firefighters in that area don't want to be the ones that are kind of reaping the accident.
Right. Tough stuff. All right. Now, next up, Mr. Alec Brinchley. So he's been with us for a while now, and doing some great things. SonicAire, we started out, we wanted to say we provided a total solution for combustible dust, but truthfully, we were shipping a fan in a box and expecting the customer to figure out how to install it and deal with it and make sure it was installed properly and working properly and put in the right location and all the electricity. And they had to figure out who was going to install it and go find their own electrical contractor to do that. And now we are at a place where we can truly say we provide a total solution.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing having somebody in-house, because we hit on this in the conversation with him, but like, we can provide the confidence that we're meeting all of the needs of our equipment. Most people have never seen an oscillating overhead dust control fan.
Right.
And so when you start to put this in, it's not like you're just, plugging in a refrigerator or some other piece of like typical machinery that you have a concept of. And so a lot of times that's where the errors come in. It's because, this is XYZ, or I've never seen this before, I don't know what to do. Like the mechanics and the electronics behind it is pretty simple, but having the ability to say, like, you know what? We can help you understand what you need for your facility. We can get you the right equipment. We can hang it. We can tie it in, and then we can continually maintain it. Yeah. I believe that's a great service.
Yeah. Not only that, but doing it in an efficient way, cost-effective way, and working around schedules and production and that sort of thing. And so it's it really is a smooth, seamless transition.
Yeah. And like being on the ops side of things, it is frustrating when you have to like have 6 different handoffs. Like, okay, well, I've got to work with this team to be able to do this. And then I got to get handed over to here and like schedule things. So us being able to say, hey, Mr. Customer, I can get you from point A to point B and we'll take care of the whole thing.
That's right.
I believe is like doing them a great deal.
Yeah. Love it. All right. So without any further ado, here we go with our special guest, Mr. Alec Brenchley. Enjoy. All right. He's in live with us today. Mr. Alec Brenchley, welcome to us from the West Coast.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, man. It's good to see you.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We've already had lunch today, but
yeah.
You can have lunch in the morning. You can have breakfast at night. You know?
It's true.
It's true.
That's actually my favorite meal, but that's a different podcast.
Yeah. We should start that.
I mean, that can be this whole podcast, in my opinion.
Yeah. We'll scrap this and go eat breakfast again.
Yeah.
All right, Alec, you've been with us on the OnAire team, about 9 months now? Something like that?
Oh, we just hit a year.
Did you? Look at that. Time flies.
Maybe next month, yeah.
It's crazy. It's OnAire time.
It is. It moves quickly. So thanks for joining us today. And we want to talk a little bit about kind of your experience, how you got here, what you're doing for OnAire, and what you're seeing out in the field, and what kind of challenges and opportunities you're seeing out there with customers and what they're facing in the dust world. So let's start back at the beginning. What got you excited to play with sparks and all things electrical?
Well, like most people in the trades, I needed a job off Craigslist. So I found a job off Craigslist and turned out to be a great opportunity with a great big guy who ended up being my business partner. But I worked with him for a couple of years, did residential stuff. And then I got an opportunity to move and go to a bigger company, a big company, and do really neat stuff with healthcare and stadiums and really neat stuff you don't see all the time. So I took that, worked for the company until I moved to North Carolina. Did a couple more jobs with people who do municipality, electrical, government jobs, that kind of stuff. And then I said, you know what? I need to go out on my own. I just need to scratch that itch. And so I did. Met up with my first boss, who became my business partner. And we struck out on a small residential company, just basically myself, a helper, and we just killed it. So did that for a couple of years, and then merged with another local company in the area. And I did that until I just got burnt out with residential work, because residential work is a lot of work. And you're always on. The phone is always ringing, which is a good and bad thing. So I said, you know what? I need to get back to the stuff I enjoy doing, which is commercial, industrial work. And so the opportunity with OnAire popped up, and I'm like, let's do this. I had just gotten my unlimited license, and you all were looking for, and we made it happen. So that's how I got to OnAire.
So there was no moment as a kid where you're like, oh man, I love electricity. I love sticking forks in the outlets. I love throwing tinfoil in the microwave, all this stuff.
Nope. No, my original path from, 5th grade to my version of college was film. I was going to be a film major, and I wanted to do direct movies and shoot movies and stuff like that. But I always had to do hands-on work. That was my thing. I just always had to be in there with it, nitty gritty. And so it just kind of worked out really well that I got a guy on my first job in the trades that didn't treat me like dirt and believed in me and wanted the best for me. And that just set a great path forward. So
look at you on film now. Stand behind the camera.
It's full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any films out there that we can go find?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I have a YouTube channel, but that's going to be private.
All right. So now that you've joined the OnAire team, you're getting to see some life out on the road. You're getting out in the field. You're getting your hands really dirty in some really dusty, dirty places. What's that been like so far?
It's been great. during the interview process, they always hype it up like, oh, our culture's so great here, everything's so great here. And then a year in, I said, yeah, it is actually really great here. And I also said that to all the new candidates that we looked at for an electrical position. I said, it's really great here. I'm not just blowing smoke. It's actually, the community is really good here. So, and really who you work with is such a huge part of the job, because they can make it miserable or really nice. And at Sonic Carrot is actually really nice. So, but I don't think that was really your question. I think the question was the work and what we do. It's been great to get out and see how a very specialized product can get into customers' hands and make their facility and their employees much happier. So, and then we get to go and put those in and make them happy.
So what types of challenges are you running across? So you're doing everything from just a basic unclassified area to Class 2 Div 1, Class 2 Div 2. So talk about the differences between those and kind of what some challenges are out in the field.
Sure. I mean, getting ourselves out of the way, the biggest challenge is always going to be the facility itself. How do we get this thing? This is not a small product, up in the ceiling. And then we get power to it. They have not yet invented wireless power, so we have to get a line from wherever it comes from to the fan up in the ceiling. And so those are our challenges. And then you get into your classified locations, and really all that changes is the type of materials that we have to use. It's a very simplified version of what changes in the classified locations. But what we do is just get our power from either a motor control cabinet or a panel that's available, bring it to our control command panel, and then out to our fans and distribute it. But then getting from point A to point B is your challenge, and that's where experience comes in. That's where knowledge comes in, to make that efficient and not waste materials and time.
So one of the great things about having Alec on the team now is there's a lot of things that we just don't know about the electrical piece of it. So we've been doing this fan thing for like 20 years. And so we can design a great fan, build a great fan, ship a great fan. We can even design the mounting equipment to safely secure that fan to the building structure. But when it comes to all the ins and outs of the wiring piece of it, and like you said, getting the non-wireless power to the fan, it's a challenge. And there's all kinds of nuances to the ways that can be done. There's all kinds of facility specific things that we have to meet. And so now having somebody here that may not always know all the answers, but knows where to go get them is an incredible resource for us to have on the team.
Yeah. I mean, this is for all intents and purposes, my Bible for the job.
Yeah.
I don't know all of it. There's some guys who are absolutely incredible with deciphering it. But the thing is that thing is so complex and so detailed. And then on top of that, you add in your local codes, your state codes, and then on top of that, your building codes. And there's just no way to know it all. But when you have a grasp of an understanding of how to get to the location in there and what you need, you can get better, more efficiently get the answers you need and making a good solution for your customer.
So how much of that is driven by the customer? Talk about that for a minute. Like when we work with a customer, who drives the where this is going and where that's going and how we're going to do this project from an electrical standpoint and pulling permits and the whole 9 yards. Like, walk us through that. What's that interaction like, start to finish?
So something I learned doing residential work, you work with people, homeowners most of the time, homeowners and general contractors, and their understanding of knowledge of my trade is usually on the lower end. I'm always in drive. I'm the driver of the ship. We're going to get that ship to where you want us to go. But since I've got the map, which is the electrical code, I have to drive. Now I can take your input. I can take your wants and desires. But eventually it has to come down to, I got to land this boat in the place that an inspector comes in and says, this is good stuff, and leaves. That's what I want. So what the customer has the ability to change is where they may or may not want things to go. But I still have to, pull the right conduit, pull the right wire, strap it in the right locations, make sure it's compliant in those ways. If you want to do a full loop around your building with my conduit before it gets to your fan, have at it. We can do that. It'll be expensive, but we can still do that. But I want to get there in the most direct and efficient way possible.
What are some of the challenges that you've seen out in the field?
Probably just the biggest challenge is going to be process lines running. Can we work over this line? Can we not work over this line? Do we need to wait till the evening to shut this line down? Then we can work over the line. That, people in the way, just stuff like that. Which if you are a patient person and you can look ahead at the end goal and at the end of the day, then you can say, okay, well, I can organize my day in these different ways and have an efficient day.
Have you had any that stood out? I've hung a fan or two, like from random odds and ends and going out and helping. And one of the ones that stands out in my memory was that we were at a laundry facility, and one of the fans had to be chain hoisted up above a dryer, and so you can't get a lift in this area. And so we had a ladder that was straddling kind of the vent where the heat comes out of one of the dryers. And so, because it was kind of the press and fold operation. And so we were like climbing up on this ladder, and then like heat is shooting out of it. We're just like chain hoisting this fan up there. but I know you've worked in been to some of the crazy ones where they have scaffolding over the entire building to climb up the like kind of the webs of HVAC or transfer equipment that they've got going on. But what like that stands out to you?
Usually those laundry facilities are insane. They just cram them full of people and product and machines to where there's just no maneuverability in there. The one that we did up in New York City actually was, it was just ants running all around, not literal ants, but people ants. Because we can see them from up above in our lifts and stuff. And you can see, usually when you're up in a lift, you can kind of tell this is the company's process. The product goes from here, goes through this line, goes to the end or whatever. In this facility, it was just like at the end of our time there, we had no idea how things got to where they actually went. There's just so many people. And then the guy, the plant manager says, "Oh yeah, this is not our busy season yet. Usually we have double the people in here." I was like, "There's no way." So, yeah, laundries are another breed for sure.
And usually it's the tighter, more restricted places that get the biggest benefit from the Sonicare equipment. Those are the hardest to get to, the hardest to keep clean, where all the dust likes to accumulate and gather. And that's where you get the biggest impact.
Yep.
So being on the electrical side of things, what kind of, I know we've talked about just like challenges of getting in and around, but like kind of speaking, because we're trying to get rid of a hazard. So what kind of things are you seeing where as we're going in, like we are helping them improve their process, or I know there's been situations where we've tied into their panels or things like that. What kind of things, kind of just from your viewpoint as the electrician, are we helping to mitigate? Because I know electricity and sparks and dust should not be kind of in the same sentence.
Correct. Well, the biggest thing that I've been able to come in to do is get our everything correct. So you can run a wire and you can plug it in and it might work for a long time, but it needs to be compliant code wise, so that where if someone comes in and says, "Hey, there was an issue here. Is it you guys?" We can say, "Nope, we did it correctly." So being able to size everything correctly according to my Bible, and being able to do everything the proper way. That way we can say have our stamp of approval on it. And this is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think that's like a huge benefit that is great now that we have Alec on the team and that we can offer to our customers, because a lot of times when we were like early on putting the fans in, a lot of times the issues that we would run into is because we didn't do the hands-on work.
Yeah.
Like something was installed backwards, or they're having a code issue because they didn't run the right type of wire. They sized their disconnects incorrectly. And so now that we have this type of offering, the service offering, it is a huge benefit to our customer, but then also like helps us help them in a better way.
Much better solution, much better end product for the customer. Better experience for them, better timeline, better communication, just the whole thing.
Yeah. Because we don't want to be in the situation we have been where a long time ago, before we had anything, like before commissioning, before anything, where a finger was pointed at us for something that a third party of a third party of a third party had done while hanging the equipment. So yeah, this is one of the best things, like having the ability to do installation, but now being able to do a full turnkey and take care of the customer from the time that they have like the inquiry about what do you do, all the way through electrical installation, mechanical installation, and then preventive maintenance.
Yeah.
Endless warranty, if you will, kind of thing.
Yeah. Perpetual.
Yeah. The biggest thing is we just don't want any callbacks unless they're callbacks for more fans. So
Right.
the better that I can do my job and the better that we can install the fans, then we can improve our callbacks to more fans.
So you get to be there when that aha moment happens for the customer, and they get to experience it for the first time when you get to turn the equipment on, and it creates a big mess initially when the fans are first started up. But once the fans are running, everything's clean, everything's sparkly, shiny in the overhead. Well, what has been your experience with that, with customers going through that startup process? What's that usually like? And I don't know, is there a specific story that sticks out in your mind that you've experienced from that?
Yeah. A lot of times at first it's just panic because there's all kinds of stuff raining from their ceiling. And they're like, uh-oh, is this going to be okay? But then we just tell them, hey, leave it running for 48 hours or something. It'll all come down. Unfortunately, we don't get to stick around for a whole 48 hours, but which is fine with me. But once it gets clear in there and they don't have to pay for people to go up into the ceiling and blow things down, they're probably pretty happy.
Yeah. I mean, I helped on another install, and we were at the end of their property, like turning out to come home, and the phone rang. Like, hey, you need to come back and help us figure this out. It's getting really dusty in here. And that's kind of one of the toughest things. We just recently did a video about, like, do I need to pre-clean? And the answer is yes. But I think people misunderstand us when we say you need to do a pre-clean, because we're going to find the rest of it. You're going to tell us, oh, yeah. We went up there with a broom, or we used like a leaf blower, or we went up with some compressed air and got it down. We're good to go. And then immediately the fans turn on and it finds every little bit of dust that you thought you had already cleaned. I mean, we've been in, like we were talking about, laundries or non-woven applications where it just looks like it's snowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to find the dust.
We'll get it. We got it.
Yep. The nasty ones are the metal, where the metal is just too heavy for a leaf blower to blow down. I mean, there's no comparison between a 2 horsepower fan and a leaf blower. It's just not the same class. So when these fans kick on, even if you've done your good clean down, it'll blow down a lot of material.
Yeah.
So you were working with us here directly in the home office in North Carolina, and now you're relocated out on the West Coast. What has that been like as far as getting situated and helping out with our West Coast team?
Yeah.
And where do you see this going?
So I've been eating a lot less company meals. No, there's not food weekly, unfortunately. The community aspect around food there is strong. So
yeah, it's a wonder we're not all 300 pounds here.
Exactly.
We cook pancakes. We have pancakes and sausage.
Pancakes. Thanks for letting me know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Out here, I mean, personally, we've got just so much on our plates. We're buying a house. We've got 2 kids. They just finished swim lessons. We're getting them in school. And my wife just started a job. So we've got all of that going on. On the work side of things, we are trying to figure out the best way to attack the problem that we have. The problem that we have is on the West Coast, it's been difficult for us historically to get installers to do full turnkey installations. There's a whole myriad of issues there between licensing, finding contractors, certifying contractors, just making the sales. All those types of things play into the numbers. Just out here are not what they are on the East Coast, where the home base is. So that's the problem, and how we're going to fix that problem is by using me as a kind of a helper for our TSMs out here to land these jobs into platinum jobs. So that's my goal. I want all the jobs out here to be platinum jobs so that we can validate having a full-time service department over here as well. And then we'll just expand off that. We'll keep going.
Yeah, because I hear it's a little more difficult. You said this briefly, but it is a little more difficult to get licensed and maintain licensure on the West Coast. And like, I know you're working through that, but just kind of what does that look like, and what are some of those oddities that make it more difficult to do work over there?
Yeah, so from North Carolina, where my license is at, that means nothing to the state of Washington, where I currently live. So in a sense, I'm starting over. Obviously, I've got all my working hours accounted for. But next week, I'm going in to take a 7-hour test so that I can be able to pull permits and qualify our company out there. So once we get that, we're good to go on the legal side of things. Then to get going from there, I need to go and take another test so I can be hands-on with the product. So they separate those out, which is kind of an odd way of doing things, but that's what they do. So just loops like that you have to jump through to get running as a business out here. And the other issue is, I don't know if you've looked at the map, but this side of the country is huge. So you have a lot of travel time to wherever you want to go. And getting companies to travel has been difficult. Some contractors don't want to leave their city. They don't want to leave their state. So we need to have people be able to drive 5, 6, 7 hours to work.
Yeah, it is always like deceptive, the like landmass west of the Mississippi, because we were in Montana recently, and I can't remember what the number is, but it's like 3 to 4 times the size of North Carolina, but it has 1/10 of the population.
It's my kind of place right there.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Exactly. I mean, I loved it. It was great, but it is like deceptive, like how much and how like far things are. Mm-hmm. I mean, we went to Texas not that long ago. That was my first time being in Texas, and you're like, oh, we're going over to this other city, and I'm thinking, okay, Greensboro to Winston, Greensboro to Raleigh, we can get there in a minute, but no, you just sit and you go and go and go and go. Mm-hmm. So that is really interesting, and just even like with the population not being as dense over there, like the options to travel are different. I mean, you can hop around some of the more populated areas, but travel is much more difficult.
Yeah, especially flights. Flights are hard.
Yep.
I mean, for me, it's fairly easy. We're next to SeaTac, Seattle Tacoma Airport. That's obviously a major hub. But if you're out, say, Yadkin or something like that in Washington, well, you might need to take a puddle jumper to get to Seattle, to get to your main flight. And if your destination's in some weird city that's not near a big airport, then you might be on 2 or 3 more planes and then drive for an hour or 2. So getting around is definitely a hurdle that we'll have to overcome out here.
Sounds like Josh. Yeah, I feel like he has to take like a horse and buggy to get to the bus stop, to get to the Uber, to get to the airport. That is the first of 7 legs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anywhere you go.
Yep.
All right.
Your layovers.
What about Western Canada? What are your thoughts on that? Have you explored that at all yet?
Personally, yes, I love it. It's so beautiful up there. Professionally, we've got, I think Josh has one or 2 sites that we're going to go visit here soon. So there's tons of timber up there. There's plenty of work, I think.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity up there.
What's the hurdle for us doing business?
That is going to be more difficult. They don't really, I don't want to broad brush everything, but they don't really want workers up there from the States. They want to use their in-house people. So we're going to need to make relationships with local companies who are willing to travel and do our work.
It's great. That you're the ambassador. You'll make connections.
Well, good. I just updated my passport, so we're good to go.
Love it. All right. Well, I'm excited about this next chapter for OnAire and for you and for your family. Congratulations on the move. Excited for this opportunity for you guys, and glad to say that you're still part of our team, an important part, and a new like I said, a new chapter out there on the West Coast for Sonic Air's expansion.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here.
All right. I think that about does it.
Yeah.
Another episode of the OnAire Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Stay dusty, my friends, or
No,
stay undusty.
Cut that. We don't want to be
Flip
dusty.
that. Stay undusty, my friend.
Stay dustless, my friends.
That's it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.